Look at his wife at the time, like, excuse me, man, like, would you insist on your son signing this right here? Like, like if I was your son, would you recommend this? She's like, yeah, I would. And I signed at that time. That was like my confirmation.
No lawyer, no nothing.
No lawyer, no nothing.
Okay.
I always knew Blueface was pretty stupid. I'm gonna tell you why. Blueface is signed to Wack 100 and managed by Wack 100. Let me tell you how this works. When you sign to a label, they take at least half already. Then you're getting managed by the guy who owns the label. So of your 50% that you're getting, or less than 50%, he's still taking at least 20% of that too. It's double dipping. You get what I'm saying?
Wack 100 was supposed to be Blueface's manager and business partner, but instead, he's accused of quietly running plays that drained millions over the years. This isn't just bad management, it looks like a long game that played out right in public, with fans watching and not even realizing what was really going on. One of hip-hop's most controversial managers allegedly pulled off one of the boldest industry hustles we've seen. Wack 100 is a Los Angeles-based music manager and longtime industry figure, known for loud opinions and non-stop controversy. Born Cash Jones, he built his name long before the music checks started rolling in, then flipped that reputation into industry power. He's worked with names like The Game and Ray J, but his connection with Blueface may be the most lucrative and most questionable move of his entire career. On the other side, Blueface was a young guy from Los Angeles who tripped into fame almost by accident. Born Jonathan Porter, he blew up fast after Tatiana went viral, with no real understanding of contracts, ownership, or business structure. At that moment, he wasn't focused on long-term strategy. He was just reacting to sudden fame and fast money, trying to keep up with a world he barely knew. That situation made Blueface an easy target for someone like Wack 100, at least according to Blueface himself. A viral artist with no manager, no lawyer, and no real guidance, suddenly making serious money without knowing how to protect it. That's when Wack 100 allegedly stepped in, not as a safety net, but as someone who saw an opportunity and moved fast, swooping in like a vulture, as Blueface later described it.
Look at his wife at the time, like, excuse me, man, like, would you insist on your son signing this right here? Like, like if I was your son, would you recommend this? She's like, yeah, I would. And I signed at that time. That was like my confirmation.
No lawyer, no nothing.
No lawyer, no nothing.
Okay.
Wack 100's daughter was actually the one who first heard Tatiana and put her dad onto the song, and that's when things started moving fast. After hearing it, Wack 100 jumped straight into Blueface's DMs trying to lock in a face-to-face meeting and get his foot in the door. But Blueface wasn't rushing anything, because a quick online search showed non-stop controversy and drama tied to Wack's name, and that instantly raised red flags. Blueface later admitted he was distant on purpose, because when you Google him, people tell you about him, and it all looked wild. The stories weren't exactly comforting, and his reputation alone made Blueface hesitate before even replying. On top of that, Wack was known in the past by a nickname that caused tension, and since Blueface was already connected to his own neighborhood identity, it made the situation even more awkward and uncomfortable. Still, Wack 100 didn't back off at all. He kept calling, texting, and pressing the issue, trying to get Blueface to come by his house for a sit-down meeting. Blueface ignored the calls for a while, but eventually one of his close friends told him to at least hear Wack out and see what he was talking about, just to know what was on the table. At that time, Blueface was doing everything on his own. He was booking shows, filming videos, and handling business without any real team behind him. Major labels like Atlantic and Empire were already circling, but he felt like they didn't really understand his background or where he was coming from.
Knew Blueface was pretty stupid. I'm gonna tell you why. Blueface is signed to Wack 100 and managed by Wack 100. Let me tell you how this works. When you sign to a label, they take at least half already. Then you're getting managed by the guy who owns the label. So of your 50% that you're getting, or less than 50%, he's still taking at least 20% of that too. It's double dipping. You get what I'm saying?
One moment at Atlantic made that crystal clear when someone asked him a question that showed they clearly didn't get his world at all. One day, while Blueface was posted up at a neighborhood park just relaxing, Wack 100 started blowing up his phone again, telling him to pull up immediately. Blueface still didn't want to go, but Wack took it a step further, and sent a car to come get him, forcing the moment and pushing the meeting into motion whether Blueface liked it or not. When Blueface finally pulled up to Wack 100's mansion, he was instantly impressed. He later said, "When you see somebody who got it, it's like, okay, I like that." And that reaction was no accident at all. This was exactly the setup Wack wanted: flashing success, comfort, and status to make it feel like he had the blueprint to the next level. And this is where things take a sharp turn. Wack 100 already had a contract fully written and waiting before they even had a real sit-down about business. Let that sink in for a second. No long talks, no breakdown of terms, just paperwork ready to go, which makes the whole situation feel rushed and heavily one-sided from the jump. Then came the moment that sealed everything. Blueface turned to Wack 100's wife and asked her straight up, "Would you insist on your son signing this right here? Like, if I was your son, would you recommend this?" And without hesitation, she said yes. That answer carried serious weight in that room. Off that response alone, Blueface signed that contract right then and there. No lawyer present, no time to really read through the details, and no clear understanding of what he was locking himself into. One signature, one moment of trust, and a decision that would end up following him for years. Blueface signed that deal mainly because he trusted the situation and believed a mother wouldn't steer him wrong, plain and simple. That trust is exactly where Wack 100's finesse starts to come into focus, because the paperwork wasn't what it looked like on the surface at all. This wasn't just a basic management agreement, it was a stacked setup that quietly locked Blueface into multiple layers of control. The contract combined both a record deal and a management deal under the same person. That's where things get wild. As the record side, Wack 100 takes 50% of all music earnings straight off the top. No filters, no breaks, just a clean cut before Blueface even sees his share. Then it gets worse. After that first split, Wack 100 also collects another 20% as the manager from what's left over. Do the math on that for a second. That's 70% of Blueface's money flowing straight to Wack 100 from the same revenue streams. DJ Academics broke this down live on stream and called it exactly what it looks like: double dipping. In most situations, it's one or the other, either a record deal or a management deal, not both with the same person. That's a major conflict because a manager is supposed to fight for your best deal. But how does that work when he's also the one cutting your checks? For context, managers usually take 15 to 20%, and record deals often split revenue 50-50 after expenses.
But Wack 100 set this up to win on every side, while Blueface took hits from every angle. And this wasn't short-term either. These deals usually stretch across multiple albums and years, meaning that massive percentage has been getting pulled for a long time and could keep rolling in well into the future. Fast forward to now, and the fallout from that contract is impossible to ignore. Blueface recently came home with very little to his name, and that alone shocked a lot of people. This is someone who had multiple platinum records and major buzz not long ago, yet suddenly the money isn't there the way it should be. Even the crab restaurant he was promoting hasn't taken off the way people expected. When you're only holding on to 30% of what you earn, it's almost impossible to build anything solid for the future. Businesses stall, investments dry up, and cash disappears faster than it comes in. Most of that money has reportedly been flowing straight into Wack 100's pockets, while Blueface struggles to stay financially stable. There are even reports saying Blueface may have to sell his house, which says everything about how deep this situation runs. This is a textbook example of how lopsided contracts can quietly wreck an artist's financial future. While Wack 100 is shown living large, surrounded by luxury and comfort, the artist who made the music is left scrambling. And the wild part is, Blueface is still tied to this deal even now, whether he likes it or not. Getting out isn't simple either. Deals like this are built to trap artists in place, with huge penalties and expensive legal fights waiting on the other side. Walking away can cost more than staying stuck, and that's exactly how these agreements are designed to work. It's also important to remember how young Blueface was when this all started. He was barely in his early 20s, fresh off the streets, with little understanding of contracts or long-term money moves. That lack of experience made it easy for someone more seasoned to control the situation and lock in terms that clearly leaned one way. And this isn't just about Blueface. This setup happens way more often than people want to admit. This situation points to a bigger pattern in the music industry, where older, more experienced business figures target young, inexperienced artists and play the long game. They flash money, apply pressure, and create fake urgency so deals get signed before anyone has time to think clearly. Looking back now, there were warning signs everywhere that Blueface didn't fully recognize at the time. Having a contract ready before real negotiations even start is a major red flag. Mixing record and management deals into one agreement, rushing signatures, and skipping legal review are all classic setup moves. These tactics aren't random. They're designed to overwhelm and confuse artists who are new to the business side of music. The most manipulative moment came when Wack 100's wife was used to validate the deal. That wasn't business advice. That was psychological pressure dressed up as family guidance. It made the situation feel safe and personal, when in reality, it pushed Blueface to trust something he didn't fully understand and sign too fast. This is exactly why industry knowledge matters so much. Artists need to know at least the basics or have someone qualified in their corner before signing anything serious. If Blueface had legal guidance or a clear breakdown of the terms, this entire situation could have gone in a very different direction. From Wack 100's side, he likely feels justified because he did help open doors, book bigger opportunities, and navigate industry spaces. But none of that justifies taking 70% of someone's earnings by default. That's extreme by any standard, especially when the artist is doing the creative work that brings in the money. The power balance here was completely one-sided. Wack 100 controlled the career moves, the income flow, and the business decisions, while Blueface had very little real authority. That's not a partnership, that's control. And when one person holds that much leverage, they can shape the entire financial outcome however they want. There's basically no easy exit, and that's one of the most frustrating parts for Blueface. These contracts are built to be airtight, and getting out usually means paying back advances, covering legal fees, and sometimes owing money an artist doesn't even have. So while Blueface is dealing with serious financial pressure, trying to stay afloat and reportedly selling property, Wack 100 continues collecting that 70% cut from nearly everything Blueface does. That adds up to millions over time that should have stayed with the artist who actually earned it. This situation drives home one major lesson that can't be ignored. Never sign anything without a lawyer looking at it first, no matter how much you trust the person or how smooth the pitch sounds. Independent legal advice isn't optional, it's protection. A lot of industry veterans present themselves as mentors or even father figure types to young artists, but too often there's a payday attached to that role. Real guidance doesn't involve stripping away most of someone's income. The luxury lifestyle and mansion image created an illusion that made Blueface believe signing up would put him on the same level fast. What Blueface didn't fully realize at the time is that Wack 100's wealth wasn't built from one success story. It came from taking large percentages from multiple artists over many years. That model doesn't just drain money, it limits growth, independence, and long-term stability for the people creating the work. And the damage goes way beyond finances. When artists can't build wealth from their own success, they struggle to invest back into their communities, support their families properly, or set up anything lasting for the future. That keeps them stuck in the same cycle, relying on a system that benefits from keeping them dependent. If Blueface had proper legal representation back then, the problems with this contract would have jumped out immediately. Any solid entertainment lawyer would have flagged that structure on site and pushed for separate agreements or at least slashed those percentages way down. Basic industry education alone could have changed everything, because anyone familiar with standard deals knows 70% is wildly excessive, and that double dipping crosses serious lines. If Blueface had spoken with other artists who already dealt with managers and contracts, there's a strong chance they would have warned him about the warning signs right away. Even taking a few days to slow down, research industry norms, and think things through could have saved him millions over time. Sometimes the biggest losses come from decisions made too fast. That pressure to act quickly wasn't real, it was manufactured. The urgency was pushed to stop Blueface from making a fully informed choice, even though he already had interest from major labels like Atlantic and Empire. Those deals may not have been perfect either, but they likely would have left him in a far better position than handing over most of his income to one person. Now Blueface is living with the consequences of a decision made years ago. He came home with little financial stability, struggling to keep businesses afloat and reportedly having to sell assets, all while Wack 100 continues to profit from work Blueface created. That contrast says a lot. The real irony is impossible to ignore. Blueface's success helped build Wack 100's wealth, but the way the deal was structured blocked Blueface from building sustainable wealth for himself. One side kept rising while the other stayed stuck, and that imbalance explains everything about how this situation ended up here. It's basically like working for a company where the boss keeps getting richer while you stay stuck. Except in this case, you can't just walk away. Blueface's options are extremely limited right now. He could try to renegotiate, but Wack 100 has zero reason to give up a 70% cut that's still paying him heavy. Walking away from the contract isn't easy either, because breaking it would likely cost more money than Blueface even has. That leaves one harsh option on the table. Keep working under the same terms and hope that volume alone makes up for the fact that he's only keeping 30% of what he earns. That's not a strategy, that's survival mode, and it puts constant pressure on everything he does. The impact isn't just financial either. Situations like this mess with motivation and creativity in a big way. When you know most of your work benefits someone else more than you, it's hard to stay inspired or push yourself at full speed. That mental weight adds up fast. Other artists are watching this play out closely. This situation has become a real cautionary example about why representation matters and why understanding contracts is non-negotiable before signing anything serious. One bad decision can echo for years. The relationship between Wack 100 and Blueface doesn't really look like a manager and artist setup at all. It resembles an owner and worker dynamic. Real managers are supposed to work for the artist, helping maximize opportunities and income, not structuring deals that benefit themselves first. What makes this even more extreme is that it mirrors a heavy 360-style deal, where one side takes a piece of everything. And even then, most of those deals don't come close to taking 70% of an artist's earnings. That alone shows how unbalanced this entire situation really is. By any industry standard, this setup is completely over the top. If contracts like this ever become normal, it opens the door to a dangerous trend where young artists get pressured into giving up most of their income just to stay in the game. Other managers could start pushing similar terms, knowing that artists chasing opportunity might feel forced to accept whatever is put in front of them. And situations like this don't just hurt business, they often ruin personal relationships too. Blueface likely trusted Wack 100 and viewed him as a mentor, someone who was supposed to guide him and protect his interests. Now, with time and hindsight, it's clear that trust may have been misplaced, and that realization hits hard. When an artist can't build real wealth from their own success, the fallout doesn't stop with them. It spreads to their entire family. Blueface has children and relatives who should be benefiting from the success he worked for. Instead, most of that money has been flowing elsewhere, leaving very little behind to create stability or long-term security. That kind of imbalance creates frustration and resentment fast. The pressure from financial strain, legal headaches, and feeling locked into a bad deal can seriously weigh on someone mentally. Success is supposed to bring relief and confidence, not constant stress and uncertainty. When you're only keeping 30% of what you earn, it's hard to feel like the work is even worth it. Why go all out when someone else takes most of the reward? That question alone can drain motivation and slow creativity. This is why the industry needs stronger safeguards for new artists. Limits on percentages, mandatory legal review, and waiting periods for high-stakes contracts could stop situations like this before they start. Without protections, the same cycle will keep repeating. Steps like mandatory review periods would stop artists from making rushed decisions that end up wrecking their financial future. Education has to be a part of the solution too. The industry should invest in real programs that teach artists contract terms, industry standards, and basic business knowledge before they ever sign anything serious. On top of that, peer support matters. Experienced artists need to speak up more and warn newcomers about common traps and shady practices. Transparency would change everything. Contracts should clearly spell out the total percentage being taken and show how that compares to normal industry standards, so artists fully understand what they're agreeing to. No hidden layers, no confusing language, just straight facts on paper. At the end of the day, Blueface is the one who took the hit here. He was a young artist who caught a lucky break with a viral song, but instead of that moment setting him up long-term, it became the foundation for someone else to profit off his work. That's a tough reality to face. This goes deeper than one bad deal. It points to a bigger systemic issue in the music industry, where experienced business players take advantage of artists who don't yet know how the system works. Until that changes, stories like this will keep repeating.
The biggest lesson is simple but powerful. Knowledge really is power. If Blueface had understood basic contract language and standard deal structures, this situation could have been avoided entirely. Every new artist needs to learn the business side of music just as seriously as the creative side. Trust matters, but verification matters more. You can believe people's intentions, but you still have to double-check everything through independent sources. That mindset alone can save careers, money, and years of regret. Just because someone looks successful or sounds trustworthy does not mean they have your best interest at heart. Image, money, and confidence can be misleading, especially in this industry. When it comes to business, you always have to think long-term, not just about what feels good in the moment. A deal that looks sweet today can quietly cost you millions over the years. Hopefully, stories like this start forcing real change. Maybe future artists will get stronger protection, and maybe questionable managers will finally face more scrutiny for how they operate. The spotlight needs to stay on these practices so the same mistakes don't keep repeating with the next generation. Unfortunately, Blueface's legacy may end up being tied just as much to this contract situation as it is to his music. That's hard to accept, but if his experience helps even a few young artists avoid falling into the same trap, then at least some good can come out of a bad situation. So let this be a final warning to every young artist watching this. Learn from Blueface's mistake. Get a lawyer, understand your contracts, and never let anyone rush or pressure you into signing something you don't fully understand. Your financial future depends on the decisions you make right now. The music industry can be powerful and rewarding when it works the right way, but it can also be ruthless when knowledge is missing. Stay educated, stay protected, and always remember, if a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If this breakdown helped you see the industry more clearly, make sure to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Subscribe for more real stories and deep dives like this, and I'll see you in the next video.